Good evening and welcome back to another semester of Sports Hour on WNYF. I'm Matt Volz. Did you miss us? Because we missed you over the long winter break. I'm joined by Brock Packey for the first little segment of our show. Brock, an exciting month of NFL football, even if it didn't necessarily end the way we hoped, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, oh my God. Okay. Just had to put that out there. Oh my God.
So we'll start with the wild card round games. The very first wild card game, the Houston Texans taking down the LA Chargers 32-12. If you can think all the way back to January 11th, exactly a month ago, when this game was played. Going into this game, it was the 4 versus 5 matchup in the AFC, in a matchup that I thought the Chargers would win. The Texans defense, Brock, put on an excellent show in this game and propelled C.J. Stroud and Houston to the divisional round for the second year in a row.
Yeah, man. C.J. Stroud, he worked his butt off, if I had to say that. And just everything with it, like down to the defense and all that, it's really good. And yeah.
Absolutely. The other game later that night, the Ravens running all over the Steelers, 28-14. Derrick Henry, 186 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And this was a game that, while it might not have been necessarily a blowout, it had all the feelings of the Ravens the Steelers having no answers for Baltimore.
Yeah. I'm going to be completely honest with you. As a known Steelers hater, I just want to say it's probably best that we just have this running gag of the Steelers always going to the playoffs for some imaginary reason. Probably some of the voodoo that the Chiefs have left off, but we'll talk about that later. But it's just such a running gag, a cutaway gag, you might say, for them to lose every single time. And I'm just grateful that how merciful the Ravens were. Just give them a little mercy. Well, actually, not any mercy at all.
The Ravens would go on to play Buffalo in the divisional round, which we will get to in just a few minutes. Speaking of the Bills, their wild card game at home against the Denver Broncos. It was a little bit of a shaky start with Bo Nix throwing a long touchdown pass to Troy Franklin on Denver's opening drive of the game. However, that was the only points that Denver mustered the entire rest of the way, as Josh Allen led a very balanced offensive attack, and the Bills took home a 31-7 win. Brock, Buffalo advancing to the divisional round for now the 5th consecutive year, as a matter of fact. I lose track of the number of seasons spent every year since 2020, and taking down a Denver team that some people thought had the chance of pulling off an upset.
Who thought that they had even a chance?
There were people who thought they could beat them.
People who thought Bo Nix was the next coming of Christ. Really? No.
Hey, Bo was good when he was an Auburn Tiger. I'll tell you that much from firsthand experience.
Well, yeah, because you're a fan of the Auburn Tigers.
That is very true, regrettably.
Which is fun. But like, I remember seeing like some stuff on social media about like how, oh yeah, we want the Bills. Mm-hmm. What happened, man? Man, I just had to put that out there because you guys are terrible. Right.
And it was a game that early on, I think there were some nerves, some fears for sure, as the Bills only led this game by 3 at the half and then pulled away down the stretch to win it 31-7 and advance to the divisional round. Mm-hmm. Later in the day, the Philadelphia Eagles, who we will have plenty to talk about later in our show, took down the Green Bay Packers 22-10. Jordan Love, 3 interceptions in this game, and Saquon Barkley really starts his playoff legacy with the Eagles.
Yeah, man. The Eagles, you had a really surprising playoff run. We'll discuss more about it in a little bit. But this game, I think it's just an easy peasy, honestly. But yeah, it was pretty good to see them beat the other team.
Yeah, and then the Sunday night game of the wild card round, the only close game, the only one-score game of the entire wild card round. Rookie Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders taking down Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-20 on a last-second field goal that went off the upright and in, courtesy of Commanders kicker Zane Gonzalez. Daniels pulls off the rare feat of a rookie quarterback not only winning a playoff game, but going on the road to do so. Brock, this is an interesting Washington team to look out for next year, and their run wasn't done here either.
They weren't, man. And with that game alone, and I knew going into it that it was going to have like a close game nevertheless. But I'm really happy for what they did for this playoff run, especially with this game.
Yeah. I do want to say that in our column that was published in the Leader, I did pick Washington to win, and I got that one right. I apologize to our assistant sports editor, Mitch, who got that one wrong, but I got that one right. Moving on to a game I did get wrong, the Monday game that was moved from California to Arizona because of the devastating wildfires that took place out there. The Los Angeles Rams put on a dominating show and take down the 14-win Vikings 27-9. And Brock, not a good time for Sam Darnold to essentially turn into a pumpkin after what had been a remarkable season.
All right, Sam, I know you're probably not watching it, but here's my little message to you. You had a chance. You had an entire thing. Your defense was good. That playoff game was not as good as you think. But there is next year. Just be careful of that. But it wasn't your game. So just keep your head up. And I know you're not going to be as happy as you are. So.
Yeah. We move on to the divisional round, and the top seed in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs, take home a 23-14 win over the Houston Texans in a game that. Maybe we're salty Bills fans, but a game that featured some rather questionable officiating. And not only, aside from any questionable officiating, Houston's offensive line just had absolutely no answers for the Chiefs' defensive pass rush. I mean, C.J. Stroud was sacked almost every other time he dropped back to pass. But, Brock, some questionable calls in this game, no doubt.
I'm going to try my best not to, go out on a tangent, because there is a bunch of terrible calls during that game and also the Bills game, but we're just going to try to scale back a little bit. But let's just talk about how the game was. It's a game of football. So it was oh my God, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. The Chiefs, they play okay game. They have been proven time and time again that they are a beatable beatable team, and well, the refs kind of sold, but that's another thing on itself. So.
Well, that's kind of how the Chiefs were winning games all year, was really those close, lower scoring, grinded out sort of games, and the Chiefs, who did not lose a single game at Arrowhead Stadium all year long, move on to host the AFC Championship. The other game that Saturday, a pretty notable upset as the #1 seed in the NFC goes down. The Lions lose at home to Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, 45-31. Washington goes to the NFC Championship a year after just a 4-win season. The turnaround by the Washington Commanders, one of the best we've ever seen in a single season, Brock.
Yeah, no, the Lions itself, they had a fantastic season. I really was hoping for them to advance on to the next round, but it was pretty more impressive to see the Commanders coming from a low-tier team all the way to where they were a few weeks ago. And that game alone, that proved how I was kind of surprised with the entire, well, kind of. I was very surprised about the entire game. So.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the games on Sunday. Part of a game that was played in a little bit of a snow globe. The Philadelphia Eagles run their way to the NFC Championship, taking down the LA Rams 28-22, despite a solid performance passing from Matthew Stafford. Saquon Barkley over 200 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, including a long one to basically put this game on ice. The Rams' last drive was not able to get any points as the Eagles' defense holds on. Philly goes to the NFC Championship. And, Brock, a solid showing for the Rams, but Philadelphia proving that they were a very dominant team.
It's proved time and time again how teams in warm climates always don't have good playing during games in snow. It's been proven time and time again. Miami Dolphins, but it's still an entire thing. They kept going. They were really good. Stafford did his best, but it wasn't as good as the Eagles.
Yeah, and we'll move on to our final game of the divisional round, which was one that we were pretty big fans of the outcome of. The Bills advanced to their first AFC Championship since 2020 with a 27-25 win over the Baltimore Ravens in a game where some might say Buffalo was outplayed in this game, but the Bills took advantage of some Baltimore mistakes. And Brock, one of the arguments that I heard for saying, well, Baltimore outplayed Buffalo was, well, if not for the Ravens' 3 turnovers, then Buffalo would have lost this game, which is a fair argument, certainly
Yeah.
is true. But you also have to remember Buffalo forced those 3 turnovers
Yeah.
and capitalized on them.
Yeah.
It's not like the Ravens' turnovers were some sort of unforced error like the Mark Andrews drop
Yeah.
on the 2-point conversion. And another note on that, when the Ravens did score that touchdown to pull themselves within 2 with a minute and a half to go, even if Mark Andrews catches that pass to tie the game, remember, it would have been a tie game, and the Bills' offense would have had a minute and a half and 2 timeouts. All they would have needed was a field goal to win the game, and the offense moved the ball pretty well for most of this game. So the argument that the Mark Andrews drop single-handedly lost it for the Ravens is one I don't buy.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate, which is very uncharacteristic of me. I do see where, like, because throughout the entire game, I almost said Chiefs. The Ravens, they were very like neck and neck with the Bills, and I do admit that it was a very scary game to watch. But with that Mark Andrews thing, they could have, like, in a hypothetical, they could have got like another touchdown with that. But like, I do agree, it's gonna like tie it instead of, like, like just get like an extra point, like maybe a 2-point conversion, maybe. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of the argument, is that it would have only tied it, wouldn't necessarily right away immediately won it. So we'll move on to our conference championship games. And the first one, the NFC Championship in Philadelphia, a game that I thought would be fairly close, and it was anything but. The Philadelphia Eagles offense completely steamrolls that Washington defense, 55-23. Brock, the Eagles go to the Super Bowl.
I want to give a massive shout out because I do have some friends who parents have like some people in the staff. The Lancasters, you guys are an essential part of the Eagles, and you guys proved it with this game itself. He was like a defensive coordinator, and like the defense throughout the entire game. Oh my God! Like they didn't even give him like a fair chance. Like it's 55 to like 23, and like it was dominant throughout the entire game.
Yeah, Philadelphia had 6 rushing touchdowns in this game. I mean, just absolutely dominant. The Eagles advanced to the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
So the AFC Championship game, the Bills and the Chiefs.
What do you want to start with this?
Sure.
Yeah.
When my parents were students at Fredonia, they witnessed the Bills go to the Super Bowl 4 consecutive times. They didn't win any of them. Growing up, I hoped that I would see the Buffalo Bills be fortunate enough to make it to the Super Bowl. Obviously, in my lifetime, that hasn't happened yet. But the negative aspect to that was myself thinking, well, at least I won't have to see the Buffalo Bills lose something important 4 consecutive times. Guess what I've seen the Buffalo Bills do against the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs 4 times in the last 5 years, which are all 4 of their last playoff matchups between these two teams. Allen is 0-4 against Mahomes in his playoff career. And Brock, it's another game where you can realistically say Josh Allen may have played well enough to win this game, and the Bills defense loses it.
Hold on.
Mind you, if I can jump in too, the Chiefs had not topped the 31-point mark all year going into this game. They scored 32 against the Bills.
So what I was about to put out there is a little tribute to Kendrick Lamar, because I have some stuff to Patrick Mahomes himself. How the hell did you happen to have a spike and miss? And how entirely that 4th down wasn't a 2nd down? How? But
The 4th down sneak that Allen had?
yes, and the entire thing, and that's why I'm just fully convinced that the Chiefs were just paying off the rest, because that game itself, that was entirely the refs saying, okay, why don't we do another touchdown? It was just an entire, we had the win, but of course we just yeah, I'm just gonna try to calm down now. But like, it was just entirely terrible.
It's
how they-
another gut punch of a season for sure for the Bills, as another year with Allen and McDermott ends without even a trip to the Super Bowl and another loss to the Chiefs. So your Super Bowl matchup is Bills and Eagles, and Jack Hoadley will join me in a few moments to talk about that Super Bowl, and we will chat about that when we return. I'm Matt Volz. This is Sports Hour on WNYF.
When you think of the local lowdown, what do you think of?
Well, when I think of the local lowdown, it's the live music that we have played in the studio.
It's got to be the laughs we shared. The memorable moments during the whole thing. Oh my God, so fun.
The local lowdown for me is the people behind the scenes, the amazing team that we have making the show.
Oh, it's gotta be exploring all sorts of genres and music I've never heard before.
Oh, easy. Going out to shows and talking to artists and getting the latest news on what they have planned for the future.
It's about these artists, man. Giving them a platform to showcase what they've worked so hard on and show their music to the community. It's all about supporting the local scene of music to keep it running for years to come. And of course, the band merch. You can't forget about the merch.
Welcome back to Sports Hour on WNYF. I'm now joined by Jack Hoadley to recap Sunday's Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. And Jack, you might have had a little bit of a different rooting interest than a lot of folks here at WNYF or in general.
Yeah, the entire United States, because I was in fact rooting.
Maybe the world.
Yeah, I was in fact rooting for the Chiefs to win this game, obviously, because I am a Dallas sports fan. Would you use earlier? Regrettably? Regrettably. But yes, I was very shocked with the outcome of this game because if what Brock was saying is correct, the check bounced. The refs are no longer getting paid by the Chiefs anymore, and the Eagles proved that in dominant fashion with a 40-22 victory Sunday night.
I think the Dallas Stars have to go and win the Stanley Cup or something like that because Dallas sports has been unbelievably through it the last week or so. But Super Bowl Sunday, the Chiefs and the Eagles, like many fans, my prediction going into this game, I thought it was going to be a very close, low-scoring game. The Eagles have a phenomenal defense, but so do the Chiefs, and they're very well coached by Steve Spagnuolo. I thought my final score prediction was 17-13 Kansas City. That was a cynical prediction. I did not want the Chiefs to win this game, obviously being a Bills fan. But I thought that Kansas City would find a way to grind out another low-scoring, defensive battle type of win like they had all year. And then, Jack, it wasn't close.
No, not in the slightest. And I'm talking to someone who's definitely not watching this show, but I do owe Nick Sirianni an apology. I had disrespected him as a coach consistently throughout not just the playoffs, but his entire time in Philadelphia. And I don't think it's crazy to say that Nick Sirianni and Dan Campbell are very similar types of coaches. I'm not going to say they're the best in the league because they don't call plays, but they know how to create a culture and they know how to win football games. Nick Sirianni, better than Dan Campbell does. I think that he out-coached Andy Reid in this game, and it's a huge reason why they are ultimately hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, and Jalen Hurts was in Disneyland today.
Oh, absolutely. I think you look at they're the type of coaches who could get a player to run through a brick wall for them, and that's been said about Dan Campbell for a while, really ever since he took over the Lions. But it's true about Nick Sirianni, too, and of course a neat local connection with Sirianni being a graduate from Southwestern High School, only about 45 minutes south of Fredonia. The Eagles, again, going into this game, I figured it'd be a close game. We'll take you through the sort of quarterly aspects and the play-by-play of how things went. On Philadelphia's opening drive, Jalen Hurts threw a long pass to A.J. Brown that was completed for a first down. A penalty was thrown for offensive pass interference. Jack, I thought when this flag was thrown, the first thought in my mind was, here we go again. It's going to be another one of those games for the Chiefs.
I looked at the other person watching the game with me and I said, oh my gosh, it's happening again. The same script from the same 3 games in a row now. I actually do not think that the Bills or the Texans lost because of the refs, but that first call of the game was very questionable. The refs then made up for it on the next Kansas City possession by giving the Eagles, I believe, a nice holding penalty that wasn't really there or something along the lines of it. So, yes, the refs tightened up the rest of this game, and obviously it did not go the way that both
No.
you and me looking at our TVs thought it would, because in the second quarter and the subsequent quarters, it wasn't even close.
Absolutely not. I mean, so Philadelphia gets a 1-yard tush push or brotherly shove, whatever you want to name the play. 1-yard touchdown run from Jalen Hurts to take a 7-0 lead. They're up 10-0 midway through the second quarter when the birthday boy, rookie defensive back Cooper DeJean from Iowa, picks off a Mahomes pass and runs it back for a touchdown. It's 17-0. Then Mahomes gets the ball back, throws another interception to All-Pro linebacker Zach Bond, who has come out of nowhere to be one of the top linebackers in the league this year. Philadelphia responds with a Hurts touchdown pass to A.J. Brown, and at the end of the first half, it's 24-0, and by the time Kendrick Lamar comes out, you're thinking, holy cow, is Kansas City even on the same playing field as Philadelphia?
Yeah, the Eagles were absolutely saying that they were not like us during that game because it was absolutely not going anyone's way. And I speaking on the halftime show, I thought it was very good. I know it's been controversial about whether or not it was actually good, but I thought it was good. And after that, I mean, Xavier Worthy had a couple of really nice catches, but it just wasn't close after that, or really before that, any part of that. Completely shocked me, but I'm just left wondering this Eagles defense, how, like, they've got to be the best coached unit and the best playing unit in the NFL, offense or defense this season.
I think the Eagles really showed what type of a team you need to be to win. The Philadelphia Eagles are a team that dominates in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They have, for my money, and probably for a lot of people's money, the best offensive line in the NFL. I think they are number one. I think the Bills are up there too, but I think Philadelphia has the top line in the NFL. That's even after losing Jason Kelce to retirement. They're all-pro, future Hall of Fame center.
1,700 pounds of player on that offensive line. That's 350 pounds of player. That's unheard of. The amount of strength and just everything behind that Eagles offensive line is ultimately what won them this game. And same on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, those are two huge interior presence that completely wrecked this game.
Absolutely, and you think about the defensive ends too. You think about the aging veteran Brandon Graham able to make plays. Nolan Smith signed this offseason. The smart acquisitions by general manager Howie Roseman. You think about Nolan Smith. You think about Cooper DeJean, drafting him in the second round. You think about signing Zach Bond from New Orleans. These are players who came out of nowhere. You had something else, Jack.
Not to talk about the defense, but you think about signing Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Continue.
You think about, and Saquon Barkley, I think, when he came over from the Giants, there was a video of the Giants owner, John Mara, saying something to the effect of, if Philadelphia signs Saquon Barkley, I'm not going to be able to sleep. And, I mean, watching the Giants play football is enough to put anyone to sleep, given how they were this season, especially at home. But seeing your biggest rival dominate with your former franchise running back, that's some next-level pain for the New York Giants.
The only sicker fan base in Dallas right now is New York.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right on that. But
Gosh.
it's so 40-22, the final score of this game. The Eagles are Super Bowl champions for the second time in the last 8 years. And this, as we've said, this game wasn't close. Kansas City got some points in garbage time, but it leads to some questions about Kansas City. And Jack, I want to ask you this. So the Patriots in their run, the Chiefs have been heavily compared to New England, for sure. Brady wins 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, from 2001 to 2004. From 2005 to 2013, there was a 9-season stretch where New England only went to the Super Bowl twice and lost both. And a lot of people kind of saw it as like the down years. Do you think we might see that with the Chiefs?
Absolutely. I think Andy Reid is good enough of a coach to where they're not going to win 4 games or something next season. But I would bet a lot of money that you will not see this team back in the Super Bowl next year, which is good news for Bills and Baltimore fans. And then second, they do need to kind of soft rebuild this now. Maybe move off of Travis Kelce if he's not willing to retire. Maybe restructure some contracts. You're paying Patrick Mahomes $66 million this offseason. Can't happen. They need to kind of soft rebuild this, and maybe they win 10 games and make the playoffs next year. I know that Patrick Mahomes is going to be in the playoffs every season, but maybe to avoid a 9-year drought, make it a 3-year drought. Soft rebuild this, develop Xavier Worthy, and they could definitely get back there faster than New England did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was a lot of discussion going into this game about if the Chiefs win and become the first team in NFL history to win 3 straight Super Bowls, which they would have been if they won. There was a lot of discussion about, is Patrick Mahomes better than Tom Brady? Which, as someone who watched Tom Brady play in my division, it is ridiculous to compare anyone to Brady, to be completely honest. I mean, as far as if you're talking about in terms of pure talent and making those wow level of plays, sure, I can understand making that case. But for saying that Mahomes is accomplishing more than Brady just by winning 3 Super Bowls in a row, when Brady won 7 in his career and went to 10, it's a bit too far, in my opinion, Jack.
Patrick Mahomes is the second best quarterback of all time, without a doubt. I think already. I don't think it's ridiculous to say that. I think if he hung it up right now, you'd probably still be able to say that. But the thing with Mahomes is that he is not able to carry this team. You saw it this year. You could say what you want about winning 15 games. There's a lot of help from ulterior forces, black magic, whatever you want to call it. This was not the same Chiefs team as years before, and they need to start tackling that now, or they're going to be looking like those 9-year droughts of the Patriots that they had.
Yeah, and even outside of saying that there was help from the officials or whatever, there were a lot of games this year where the Chiefs didn't look all that great. I mean, they won 15 games. Several of those were one-score games. You think about some of the wins that they had this year. They had the doinked field goal to beat the Chargers. They blocked a field goal to beat the Broncos. You had the game on Black Friday against the Raiders where Aiden O'Connell dropped the snap because he wasn't ready for it, and they recovered, and there was a penalty on the Raiders on that play. They beat Atlanta in a game because there possibly could have been pass interference called on the Chiefs that was not. They beat Cincinnati because a somewhat questionable, I think it was a reasonably good call, pass interference was called on the Bengals that maybe couldn't have been. You go back to their first game of the season, the Chiefs are playing the Ravens in the kickoff game. Baltimore appears to score a touchdown that with an extra point would have tied the game. Yeah, and Isaiah Likely's big toe is on the out-of-bounds line. They won so many games this year by just those little, I said earlier in this year, I said the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs are the luckiest single-season team. Not to say they weren't good, they were, but they were the luckiest single-season team in NFL history, and I was hoping, as a Bills fan, that their luck would finally run out on Super Bowl Sunday, and it did.
Absolutely, and there was definitely a part of me that was watching that game on Sunday, even as a huge Eagles hater. I can't stand that team. I can't stand their quarterback. I could get a whole segment on how much I just despise the Philadelphia Eagles, but we're keeping it positive on Sports Hour today because I need that right now.
Yes.
So even a part of me smiled when I got to see the Chiefs lose that game Sunday, and it's going to be interesting to see where both teams go from here because they both have a lot of free agents. Talking about Zach Bond earlier, he's a free agent. Philadelphia has to re-sign him. He played out of his mind this year. On the other side, the Chiefs, Nick Bolton, he's a free agent. That's a huge middle linebacker for them. It'll be interesting to see where both teams build off of this. I think the Eagles are in a better position to do it than the Chiefs are, but that will certainly be something to watch.
Absolutely. Like you said, the offseason is definitely going to be interesting to watch, and we've already seen a few big names on non-Super Bowl teams who have already either requested to be traded or have been told that they're going to be traded. I mean, Myles Garrett has requested a trade out of Cleveland, and the Rams are apparently going to part ways with Cooper Kupp, as well as the Raiders could be trading Max Crosby. Aaron Rodgers not going back to the Jets. It's going to be a fascinating offseason to watch.
Absolutely, and don't be surprised if there's one division in particular that's going to be active in all of these negotiations. It's definitely the NFC East. Watching that division hates each other like only the AFC North does, and watching the Eagles win the Super Bowl is going to inspire especially the Commanders, who have a ton of money, and maybe even the Cowboys and the Giants to make some desperation moves to try and compete right now and stop an Eagles repeat, which I definitely do not want to see.
No, the situation, we talked about the Giants, the situation the Giants in, I mean, you figure you just saw one division rival win the Super Bowl, another one just played in the NFC Championship game, another one, Dallas, even though they had a rough season, you know that on paper Dallas is a talented football team. If you're the Giants, you're looking at the rest of your division going, where are our wins going to come from? I was looking at their schedule for this year earlier today, and the teams that they play at home, I'm pretty sure every single one of them except Dallas finished above 500. They play San Francisco too, another team that had a bad season, but has talent.
Yeah, I mean, teams like Dallas and San Francisco, maybe not to the same level, are going to return to form next season because they're going to be healthier. praying that they will be healthier.
Yeah.
And they're going to bring in new talent, obviously. Debo Samuel is a player who's undoubtedly getting traded or released this offseason. But I think that the Giants are in a spot where I don't think it's ridiculous to say that you could look at them going 0-17 next season with the nightmare schedule that they have.
Yes, I said the same thing as well. And wrap it up talking about the Bills. I think that this game on Sunday really showed Buffalo, okay, maybe to beat Kansas City, we've got to have a defensive line that makes plays. My biggest frustration with the Bills is and has been that their defensive line vanishes in the biggest moments. Ed Oliver is one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the league and really only has a couple of good games per year. You had Von Miller was the big home run signing, and he was great before he got injured in 2022, but he had that injury, hasn't been the same since. A.J. Epinesa, a former second-round pick, has been up and down, made some splash plays sometimes. The only player who really consistently makes an impact on the defensive line is Greg Rousseau, and even Rousseau is a little bit up and down at times. So it's going to be interesting to watch how Buffalo will rebuild that side of the ball.
Let's have Myles Garrett go 2 hours east and have a good time in Buffalo.
Any Bills fan would probably be a huge fan of that for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining me, Jack. We're going to take a quick break and then come back talking some National Lacrosse League. Lily Howard is going to join me to talk about the undefeated team that could result in a three-peat, the Buffalo Bandits. You're watching Sports Hour on WNYF.
To Sofia and Gabriel, mis flores, my little flowers. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love, so you can take me with you wherever you go, near or far. These stitches and threads join us together. Me, your mother, and both of you. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you as you bring our colorful stories to the world.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly and put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school or even let alone go to college, so I'm trying to break that barrier. Every day after work, went straight to school, studied hard, and it paid off. I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me. The high school diploma is just added to the confidence, and now I feel unstoppable.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to Sports Hour on WNYF. There was one team on Sunday who was not able to finish off the three-peat, but another team may just be able to do that. I'm now joined by Lily Howard to talk about our undefeated, twice defending champion, Buffalo Bandits.
Hungry for that three-peat. We're going for that three-peat.
I truly believe that as well.
The way that they're playing right now, are you kidding? They're insane. One of the players I think we need to really look out for is Ian McKay. Hello, he's been unstoppable this season. Not a typical goal scorer, more of a guy on defense, but hello, he's showing up. He's doing great.
Yeah, on a Bandits team that you think about, you have Josh Byrne, offensive, MVP last year. You got Dane Smith breaking the record for the most assists in a single season. I was looking at the all-time single season records today, and the records for points out of the top, I think 7 or 8, 5 of them are either Josh Byrne or Dane Smith.
Yeah.
To think about a Bandits team, not only that, but you think about Chase Frazier, Tahoe Kananakoke, Chris Cloutier, a team with that many offensive threats. The fact that Ian McKay, for a while, was leading the Bandits in goals this year is incredible.
Insane. Like you said, normally we're looking at Josh Byrne, Dane Smith, who honestly, I love Dane Smith. I love him so much. I would love to see a little bit more from him on goal scoring as of right now. I feel like I'm really happy with all of the assists that he's getting. I think that's pretty typical Dane Smith. But at the same time, I need him to show up more. I don't know. There's just something about it. He's not hitting heavy like he is like he did in all the previous seasons. But
yeah,
I've got faith in him. There's still a long way to go.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, Dane Smith had a 70-goal season a handful of years ago.
Yeah.
And he's got the talent for goal scoring, certainly. The biggest thing to me about why the Bandits are so successful is the depth that they have. It's not just Byrne and Smith. Those guys are incredible. I mean, in the game last week on February 1st on Tucker Outland Foam Night against Albany, both Byrne and Smith had 10 points each. It was 5 goals and 5 assists for Josh Byrne, 3 and 7 for Dane Smith. And it's not just them. It's Ian McKay. It's Chris Cloutier, Chase Frazier, Tehoka Nanticoke. Heck, sometimes you even get Brandon Robinson will get it, or he's not with the Bandits anymore, but in the past he would. And they've been able to sort of make up for that. You know, they've had
Weiss. He's been really showing up these past couple games.
Yeah, Matt Spanger, one of the defenders, he scored on February 1st. So it's a Bandits team that is scoring can come from almost anywhere. And I remarked to one of the fans that sits in the same section that I do for the games, it seems like anytime the Bandits need the offense, it's like a switch. They can just turn it on.
Yeah, 100%. Completely agree.
Yeah, it's the remainder of their schedule. The Bandits are 6-0. They have a doubleheader this weekend. They're in Toronto or Hamilton. Taking on the Toronto Rock on Friday night. So that may interrupt. We're right with you.
Hate the Rock.
That may interrupt some of your Valentine's Day plans. And then on Saturday,
as it should,
which is honestly fine.
Valid.
I feel like that's okay. Like
go to Hamilton. Hello?
Think that, I could propose that. I may get shot down, but I could absolutely.
Hey, you gotta try.
I gotta try it.
You'll
right?
never know if you don't try.
It's not that far. It's just right in Hamilton, right? Exactly. And then Saturday, the Bandits return home to take on San Diego in a 7:30 game. There's the opportunity for Buffalo to go to 8-0. They're playing a Toronto team that has been nowhere near what you would expect at all.
Like bottom of the league. Yeah, they're like third to the last.
Yeah, they're 3-6, I think, something like that. Yeah, I mean, you think about the talent that the Rock had, the fact that they've played Buffalo in the semifinals the last 3 years. For them to be 3-6, especially with Nick Rose, arguably the best goaltender in the league, to be 3-6 is shocking for Toronto.
And their fans talk a lot. For some,
they sure do.
Bottom 3 team. That's all I'm gonna say. But I think we'll sweep the Rock. We swept the Rochester Nighthawks already, which we love to see. Hate the Nighthawks too.
Absolutely.
But I think they could go 8-0 this weekend. The Seals are kind of scaring me just a little bit, but Rock, we've got it. It's going to be at least 7-1 by the end of the weekend.
I agree. I really think that they can get it done. I mean, Banditland, I've always heard that Friday Night Banditland, and Lily, you might agree with me on this, Friday Night Banditland sometimes tends to be a little bit cursed. I mean, I think back, there was a game last year where the Bandits played the formerly New York Riptide, now the Ottawa Black Bears, on a Friday night. New York's one of the worst teams in the league last year, and the Bandits lost that game. But Saturday Night Banditland is just a totally different atmosphere. And not only that, it's Marvel Night, too, the Bandits taking on San Diego. And their uniforms, we talked about it before, their uniforms look
Iron Man
pretty cool.
is sick. Are you kidding me? We got Iron Man on the sleeves. It's going to be incredible. Last year was Guardians of the Galaxy. I went with our EP, Jenna, and that was like one of her first games that she's ever been to. And that was a crazy fun win for her. But I think these jerseys are a little bit better.
I do, too. I think that for anyone who is looking to get into lacrosse, there's not a better time to start following the Bandits. I mean, when I started becoming a fan of the Bandits, which was my first game that I went to was, I think, about 10 years ago. And if I remember correctly, they weren't all that great outside of a couple of players. But this is the time to really get behind this team. And they've got a chance to do something that only one other team in league history has done, and add a 7th championship banner to the rafters in KeyBank Center.
It's crazy. And then to go just back to back to back. A three-peat? Are you kidding me? Come on, we got to beat out these Chiefs. We got to, do what they couldn't do. Like, that would be incredible. Like, this team has so much talent, and I feel like it's so underrated, but watch the sport.
Yes.
Please make it the next big league. Please, I'm begging you. Like, this sport is so much fun. I swear you will get hooked instantly. And if you're from Buffalo and you need a team, this one can win. Sorry, no hate to the Bills, some hate to the Sabres.
Well,
but
yeah.
if you need a Buffalo team, this is your team.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, you think about, obviously, the fun and the hype around the Bills. The Bills season is over. It's off-season conversation now. The Sabres season,
Over.
symbolically, metaphorically, is over once again. You've got a Bandits team that, for almost all of their history, has been very successful. I mean, this is a team that won back-to-back championships in their first 2 seasons of existence. They're a team that they've always been good. I compare, for those who don't watch the National Lacrosse League, I compare the Bandits as the New York Yankees of the National Lacrosse League, but specifically, not the Yankees nowadays. They are the Yankees of the late 90s and early 2000s. Like, I'm talking like the core 4, Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, team that won the World Series 3 years in a row, went to the World Series, 5 times in 6 years and 6 times in 8 years or something like that. That is the type of dominance that we're talking about with the Buffalo Bandits. And we didn't talk about him yet, but Matt Vince in net, the fact that Vince is still doing, I mean, he was the goaltender for that team that won 3 championships in a row, the Nighthawks from 2012 to 2014. He is the first goaltender in NLL history to reach 16,000 minutes played.
Insane.
Yeah, I remarked to my friend, I'm not even sure that I've been alive for 16,000 minutes. I mean, it's incredible to see what he has continued to do and how he has continued to just get better with age.
And these goalies, they do a lot out there. Like, oh my gosh, if you've ever seen them, they are so padded up. Like, it's insane. They're constantly moving. Matt Vince, when he's on a roll and he's, blocking everything, sometimes, you'll get the over-your-shoulder Matt Vince, and you'll be like, oh, okay,
yeah.
typical. But, when he's, like, really moving and grooving, you can't stop that guy. I don't know how. I couldn't do that now. And he's, what, like, mid-40s? Like, are you kidding?
It's incredible, the ability, the talent and the ability that the Bandits have at pretty much every single level. Not only that, they are coached by who is, for my money, the greatest box lacrosse player to ever play the game.
100%.
In John Tavares. It's a team that a lot of other National Lacrosse League teams are, they play in smaller arenas. Some others play in NHL arenas, and maybe they'll get 14, 15,000 fans a game. KeyBank seats 19,070 fans. That arena is sold out almost every single game, and that was the case even when they weren't as good of a team.
Like, roughly, I mean, I think per game we're talking like at least 17,000 fans per night, which is crazy. Like, you look around and it's just a sea of orange. Like, there is really no other fan base like Banditland. Like, only in Buffalo. I was lucky enough to go to Albany for game 1 of the finals, and it was sad, to say the least. On the Jumbotron, they were going over the rules of the game before game 1 of the finals. And we're just looking around, we're like, we got to go back to Buffalo. And we were so happy to drive back the next day and see them take it all. But it's really uncomparable city. Like, you can't match Banditland.
It's redemption for, I remember the Sabres in their playoff run several years ago. I'm, of course, dating myself, the Chris Drury and Danny Briere years, when they played Carolina in the conference finals. And in Carolina, they were showing the rules of hockey on the Jumbotron, and Carolina beat Buffalo in that series. So I think maybe a little bit of redemption for the Bandits over Albany last year. And the fact that it wasn't great of a record for the Bandits last year, when they finished as the number 4 seed, able to get by Albany, and it's interesting to see. There's some tough competition for sure, but could the Bandits do it again?
I hope so. I mean, we've only had 6 games this season, which if you look at some of the other teams, they've been playing like, I think like Rochester's played like 9 so far. Yeah, we're looking at 10 for a lot of these teams. So we're kind of at a spot where it's like, yeah, we've played the least amount of games compared to like pretty much every other team, but I also think we have the talent to back it up. So I mean, there's a comparison there, but I don't
Yeah.
think that will, I don't think the number of games that we've played will really hold anything over like us on the other teams.
No, I think if anything, it's more of an opportunity for Buffalo to show just how good they are. And fingers crossed that as the semester rolls on, we will be celebrating more and more Bandits victories as maybe the streak can grow and maybe Buffalo can claim a third straight championship. Well, thanks for joining me, Lily. Always happy to talk about the Bandits. We are matching too.
Yeah.
We're both wearing our Josh Byrne jerseys, which is just awesome.
Mine is don't look at me.
That's
guys.
fine. You know what? That's okay. It counts. It counts. It still
counts.
counts. Absolutely. We'll be back in a few minutes. Jenna Polito is going to join me to talk about the Four Nations face-off and some NHL hockey. You're watching Sports Hour on WNYF.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
Welcome back to Sports Hour on WNYF. I'm now joined by Jenna Polito to talk some NHL hockey. The NHL on a pause right now, so not a whole lot of Sabres action to talk about. We might get to them here in just a moment, but a pretty notable international tournament getting started, the Four Nations face-off between Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the U.S.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot more interesting than doing an all-star game where you just pretty much are going to get one player from every team. So what the Four Nations does is that we are going to get, it's going to be players from a bunch of different NHL teams making up the rosters of each of these nations, and it's going to be like a tournament style for basically who's going to beat who. Is it going to be USA? Is it going to be Canada, Sweden, Finland? We don't know. Only 3 players from the Sabres are on that team. Rasmus Dahlin for the Sweden team. I believe he's the second team, not first. And then UPL, as well as Henry Jokiharju, who was a substitute for someone that got injured. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean to be too critical of players, but I may have audibly laughed when Henry Jokiharju was named to the Team Finland roster, given the fact that if I'm being in complete honesty, he's probably been the single worst Buffalo Sabres defenseman this year, and it takes a special type of player to be able to do that. But the Sabres' representation in this tournament, the one thing that I question the most is I'm really not sure how Tage Thompson didn't make it onto the Team USA roster. I mean, there are some great players on this American roster, Jenna, but there's a few that I think easily Thompson is better than.
Yeah, I definitely think Thompson could. Depending on what has happened since that 6-4 game where was it the 6-4 game where he had that nasty hit on him or something?
Yes, against New Jersey, yep.
Thompson seems to have this habit of right before he's supposed to go to the All-Star game, he gets injured. So who's to say that that wouldn't have happened if he even was in here? But I do believe, not everyone's favorite, but Jack Eichel is on the U.S. team. So we'll
Yes.
see how that's going.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
So the rosters, I've seen a lot of people say that the roster quality between Canada and the U.S. significantly greater than Sweden or Finland. I've seen a lot of not great. I mean, the last I saw, Rasmus Dahlin, I think, was on the 3rd defensive pair for Sweden, and they had Jonas Brodin on their top pair, which is ridiculous if I'm being completely honest. But it will be interesting to see how that tournament shakes out, even though a lot of people think it's going to be Canada versus the U.S. to see who wins it all. Definitely don't count out those Sweden and Finland teams. They've got a chance. And of course, Jenna, it's notable to mention that in an international hockey tournament, one of the usual powerhouses is not competing, as of course Russia has not played in international hockey tournaments since their war with Ukraine broke out. But the tournament, I think it's an interesting concept with the tournament. Almost reminds me of a lower scale World Cup of hockey when we had that a handful of years ago, which I still believe the Team North America jerseys from the World Cup of hockey, the orange and black, were absolutely unbelievable.
I mean, orange and black.
The orange and black look pretty good, folks. I'll just be completely honest. But it's a winning color combination, for sure. For sure. I mean, blue and gold, we know, certainly isn't a winning color combination. There's no doubt about that. But so the tournament starts tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah, 8 p.m. I believe it's Canada versus Sweden. I'm not sure if it's at the Bell Center or in Boston, which is the two places where the whole tournament is going to be taking place. A few people, I think I was talking to someone and they were asking like, oh, are they playing in all of these 4 nations? And while that would be cool, I believe that would be a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of money.
A logistical nightmare is what you're saying.
Logistical nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is the type of tournament that I think hockey is, they're looking to grow the game. And USA Hockey is something that is trying to maybe even overtake Canada, which was previously thought to be unheard of. But I mean, look at the World Juniors tournament with the U20 men's back in January, the U.S. winning back-to-back gold medals for the first time ever. The women's AAHF World Championships later in April, not to mention the Professional Women's Hockey League making their tours. They're going to be coming to Buffalo on February 23rd, which is going to be super exciting. Maybe we'll talk about that too. But I think that hockey is definitely trying to grow their game, especially in the United States. And with tournaments like this, if the U.S. can win, it could do that.
Yeah, the 4 nations, also this tournament is doing exactly what the NHL fans have wanted for the longest time. They're going to have the correct scoring method. They're going to do 3 points for regulation win, 2 points for overtime win, 1 point for overtime loss, and then 0 points for that, which this is also the scoring that the PWHL consequently has put in. I don't know, maybe women just do it better. Who knows? Who's to say? But I've definitely seen a lot of talk about that. People don't really love that 2 points for regulation and then, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're holding out hope for NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman to do absolutely anything positive that NHL fans want, we're probably going to be very disappointed, but we'll see if things change. I mean, depending on how this tournament goes, maybe that's something the NHL does look at implementing in the future. I mean, Gary Bettman did say that his retirement is coming soon, and the sound that you're hearing is the cheering in the streets of every single NHL fan in existence. But it'll be interesting to see if the NHL maybe looks at the things that the 4 Nation does and looks at things that fans receive well and see if they can make changes in their own game.
Yeah, I totally agree. And on that note, I think it's time we talk about the Sabres just a little bit. I wish we didn't. In case you missed it, the Sabres went on a 13-game losing streak over our winter break. Most of December, I believe the last game they won was the game right before Thanksgiving. I could be messing that up. It feels like it was so long ago, but also not so long ago either. Yeah.
It was the curse of the gravy boat. They handed out
gravy
those
boat.
Thanksgiving gravy boats, which, by the way, thank you for my gravy boat. I love it
course.
so much. It's sitting on my desk. It's like the coolest thing. It's a great addition to all of my little sports knickknacks. But the Sabres did go on a little bit of a run before they took this break. They did lose to Nashville the other night, but they won 4 games in a row for the first time in several seasons. And there's thought that maybe it could be a strong ending to the season. However, at least for me, I think they're too far back. I mean, you're looking at, they're in last place in the Eastern Conference. I don't see how Buffalo has enough time left in the season. They may put together a solid run over the last 2 months of the season. That's definitely possible. But I don't know that there's enough time left for them to vault themselves into playoff contention, Jenna.
I really don't think so either. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, yes, they're the last, but they're also the only team that is under 50 points, and that's going to be kind of hard to get back from, especially there's got to be, what, like 40, a little less than 40 games left. Usually the All-Star break is about halfway through the season. So yeah, the one game that definitely I think was really notable in this little 4-game winning streak, our first game against Boston, it was 7-2. Double hat trick night for JJ Peterka and Tage Thompson. Wish I could have been there, actually. That would have been great.
Yeah, for sure. That's the type of game that both gets you excited and frustrates you, because that game shows what the Sabres are really capable of and what level of talent they have.
Yeah, and it's like, why couldn't they
keep
this up?
And then you see them play one of the worst teams in the league and lose 5-1, and it's just, you're wondering where in the world the talent goes. And there's been a lot of discussion about Buffalo maybe being involved in some high-profile trades. I know there were rumors, of course, the Vancouver Canucks trading JT Miller to the New York Rangers. There was a big feud between both Miller and fellow star center Elias Pettersson. Reportedly, I did see that the Canucks have pulled Pettersson off of the trade block, so it looks like they are going to be hanging on to him. And inevitably, when Kevin Adams says we were so close, just couldn't get it over the finish line, that's something to certainly hold on to. But this offseason is going to be an interesting one for the Sabres. Not that we're quite ready to talk about the offseason, but the Sabres are a team that they've got money to spend. I mean, they had significant cap room left. I think it was close to about $6 million in cap room available that they didn't spend going into this season. So it'll be interesting to see how they maybe sign bridge deals or long-term deals to some of their current players, as well as maybe do they make a run at some players in free agency. Maybe Mitch Marner comes south of the border and becomes a Buffalo Sabre.
Please. Unfortunately, the only thing that might deter people from Buffalo is that we have high taxes and no palm trees.
That's correct.
And also Kevin Adams, who I seriously believe there needs to be a change within the management in this offseason. Maybe even coach. I mean, I don't think this is the Lindy Ruff that we have seen play for the Sabres and coach for them in the 90s. I mean, in this past game where Tage Thompson had this nasty hit and the player was ejected from the game, I heard it was actually Lindy Ruff that told no one to retaliate, which doesn't seem like something that Lindy Ruff would do.
No.
But
no, I'm reminded of the 2007 brawl when the Sabres played the Senators and Chris Drury got cheap shot. And so he sends out the line of his 3 physical players, Andrew Peters, Adam Mayer, and Patrick Galetta, who was playing his first career game that night. And the 3 of them went out against Ottawa's top line. And the line from Adam Mayer was, "There is no puck. Just go get him." And they did, in fact, go get him. Marty Baron, the Sabres goaltender that night, got into a fight. It was terrific. I think about it at least once a day. But you're exactly right, Jenna. It's not the type of physicality. It is a different game than it was several years ago, you know, when we were little kids and the Sabres were so great in the Drury and Briere years. But there's still, there's something to be said about sticking up for a teammate.
yeah, I mean, honestly, another one of the games that I went to over the break, I went to the Rob Ray game, and Rob Ray was another player that was just known for sticking up for his teammates. He was, I mean, if you look at him now, if you meet, his nose is crooked because of how much he has fought, but just showing that you care about your teammates that way is something that Buffalo is really lacking. I think it's that sense of community, the sense of all going towards the same goal, and just not seeing it yet.
No, you're absolutely right. It's something that has been absent for several years during this drought. And they tried to make a statement in the game against Columbus last week, which was a game I was at. They sent out, we didn't even know the game started. We didn't even know the puck dropped. And Dennis Gilbert, the defenseman, Buffalo native, immediately gets into a fight 3 seconds into the game, which a lot of people said, okay, sure, you're trying to send a message that you're not going to stand for getting pushed around. But you're not playing against the New Jersey Devils anymore. You're playing against Columbus. And so it didn't really do anything, but it was a goat-head game, and they won. So it's not one that you can really complain about too much. And the hope is that maybe they can build something, but you wonder what they're going to have to do. The other conversation is going to be the trade deadline coming up. And there's been discussions about some players in possible trades, most notably Dylan Cousins. Dylan Cousins is under contract for a handful more years. He's being paid $7 million a year. And to me, there have been many games this season where Dylan Cousins has been borderline unwatchable. This was a player who scored 30 goals 2 years ago, so maybe could be on the trade block for Buffalo, but we'll see as things develop. And again, the Four Nations, Jenna, is going to be something really, really exciting to watch. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited.
For sure. Well, that does it for our first episode of the semester of Sports Hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week to talk all sorts of great sports. Hopefully the Bandits will still be undefeated, and maybe the Four Nations will be going well as well. From all of us here at WNYF, thanks for tuning in. I'm Matt Volz. This is Sports Hour on WNYF.